Now, if anybody knows how to jack up a car appropriately, especially on a Mark IV, make sure you pick it up from the pinch welds right over here. And then once you have it high enough, use your jack stands and then use the main frame for it. Use it about 2 to 3 inches away from the front of the frame and put your jack stands there. Repeat the same process on both sides and you'll be straight. The car will be on jack stands appropriately and won't have any issues with any wobble or any dangers of the car falling. Alright guys, there'll be more. Alright, now that the car is in the air, the next step is taking the front end off. The first thing we're going to need to do is remove the grille. Once the grille is removed, it will reveal 5 bolts that need to hold the front bumper. And then you're going to have a couple more screws over here on the side by the fender. On this car, well, they're not there anymore. Looks like they broke off. But you'll see there's a couple screw holes here where you need to remove. You're going to need a Torx if it's OEM. It's going to be on both sides. Recommend that if you have the wheels on, rotate the wheels so you can get the bolts off. Alright guys? See you soon. More coming. Alright, so you'll see the bolts exposed right here on the bumper. 1, 2, 3, 4. We took off the ones off the side by the fender liner underneath the wheel. The bumper is pretty much ready to come off. Just keep watch. Just be very careful. I recommend using 2 people, but you can do this by yourself. It's not very difficult. So both bolts are coming off. My buddy Javier is going to pull the front bumper off. Just pull straight off. There are side markers on here as well, so be careful. Just as another reminder, if this bumper's never been taken off, there are 2 more bolts on the very bottom of the bumper where the grill inserts are. You need to remove these 2 bolts. There's 1 on each side. Once those are taken off, the bumper will come right off. Alright, now that the front end is exposed, the next part is removing the headlights, taking the crash beam out, and then the front end, draining the coolant, and then pretty much the front end should come right off. The next thing we need to do is that the headlights have 2 bolts up here, 2 bolts down below. You can see right there and there. This one's missing 1. The crash beam, you got to take off these bolts right here. They're the same on each side. And then once you're done loosening all that up, you want to drain the coolant, which is, you got this little flange down here at the bottom. It's a little knob on your lower radiator hose. I can show you. Here it is. You turn this little bad boy clockwise, it'll unlock it and it'll start draining coolant from this hole right here. I recommend put a bucket if you don't have an area to drain it to. Attach a hose and get a bucket out of the way and you can drain it that way as well. If you see this wiring right here, this is your fan relay and your fan control module here. You gotta disconnect these bad boys because this is also part of the front end disassembly. So just be careful when you guys take these apart. They are on fragile plastic holders. They're very easy to take off, but they're also very easy to break. Alright, the front crush beam is out, or the bumper support, whatever you guys want to call it, is out. So the next thing you need to do is drain the coolant. Take the cap off the reservoir or little bubble. Come down here, and you're going to see, like I showed you guys earlier, this little knob here on the lower radiator hose. Just turn the dial on the knob, and there goes your coolant. Let it drain out completely while you work on something else. The next portion of this will be removing the rest of the front end. We're going to remove the AC lines. Here's one. And the second line we're going to be removing is down here by the radiator support. You can't see it, but here's my hand down below, and there's a second line down here. You're going to remove that one, and then the whole front end will be able to come off. Just remember to remove the upper and lower radiator hoses. They do have small clips, but that's pretty straightforward. I will show you guys that in just a minute when we get there. But there's the upper radiator hose. Same place where you drain the coolant down below. You're going to be removing that clip and the hose will come off. Alright, so the next step is to remove the radiator hoses. And pretty much all we did was just pinch the clamp, pull the hose off, and once you drained all the coolant, you don't have to worry about anything going. Down below, my buddy is over here taking off the other clamp and about to take off the other radiator hose. We've disconnected the AC lines like I showed you earlier. So the front end has nothing else to support it or nothing to be held together with. Once these radiator lines are disconnected, front end comes right off and we're ready to do all the other major removals on this engine. Alright, and what's he yanking on right now is the lower radiator hose. And there it goes. Pulled out and draining it right into a bucket. And you'll see right above the lower radiator hose, there are the fuse, the wiring for the fans, for the fan switch and the fan relay. That's going to be the next to come off, so stand tight and keep watch, guys. Right here, we're taking off the 10 mil bolt that holds the front end pretty much alignment. There's two of them, one on the right, one on the left, exactly on each opposite end. Everything's disconnected. We're going to do a quick relapse of what we did so you guys can pretty much do this on your own. Battery came out. If you come down here at the bottom, we drained the coolant. Drained coolant, removed lower radiator hose, disconnected the 3 fan sensors that are here at the bottom, disconnected the AC line. On the left side of the car, we disconnected the lower AC line and the upper radiator hose. The front end should just pop right off now. You just got to take the 2 bolts on the very top. There are 2 10mm bolts, left and right side, and then the whole front end should just slide right off. Forgot one more thing. We got to disconnect the hose from the main assembly here at the bottom. There's a clip here and it holds the lower radiator hose in place. And then the front end comes right off. With the front end removed, there's a lot more to see how much easier it is to remove. Right now we're removing the intake. We're going to remove the turbo inlet pipe, this bad boy here, the MAF sensor, the breather hose, all upper supports that pretty much connected to the turbo. And then you're going to start removing fuel lines, water lines, power steering. We come down on this side. The power steering, which is over here. Get a bucket, drain these power steering lines right here. You're going to remove the SAI, so keep that out of the way. Down over here, you have the main power steering feed line. Remove it from here. It's going to go over to the side of the engine, and this should move out of the way so you guys don't have any issues getting the engine out of the car. Once you follow up with that, you're going to come over here to the transmission. You have 2 shifter linkages here. They're both held together by little clips. Just a little flathead. Take that clip out on both sides, and the linkage will pop right out. You will also require to remove right over here, if you guys can see it, there's 3 13 bolts that hold the linkage in place for alignment purposes. You're going to need to remove those as well so the transmission can actually come out with the car. We're taking the engine and the transmission out as a whole. We're not going to take it off as 2 pieces. It makes it a much easier process for removing and installing the engine back.